Hi everyone. KWIZ Forms is a forms and workflow solution for SharePoint Online and SharePoint 2019 Server. In this quick 30-minute session, I'll show you why KWIZ Forms is the best solution for non-technical users. I'm sure most of you are familiar with many other solutions allowing you to implement forms for SharePoint. So I'd like to spend a few minutes to highlight the main things that make KWIZ Forms different. The first thing is that KWIZ Forms is designed for non-technical users. So you don't have to be a power user or a developer. You will not see any Visual Studio-like designer with dozens of controls. Instead, you'll see web settings pages based on logic rules. This enables us to eliminate the bottleneck of few form experts that implement forms for the entire organization. Another advantage is that KWIZ Forms is a 100% SharePoint integrated solution. Instead of introducing another proprietary designer that creates proprietary forms, we enhance the existing SharePoint list forms, which means you get to keep all the SharePoint extensibility features while working with KWIZ Forms. Okay, so let's talk about this part that no one talks about. What happens to your data when you're using a vendor-hosted app? Looking at many of the form solutions you can find on the Microsoft App Store, you may notice that these are implemented as provided hosted app. A provider hosted app processes and renders your data on the vendor's cloud server. During this process, the provider may need to save some of your data on his database. On the other hand, KWIZ Forms, actually same as all other KWIZ apps, is a SharePoint hosted app, which means none of your data goes to our cloud servers. Because as a SharePoint hosted app, it is a 100% client-side software. So security and privacy wise, you have nothing to worry about where exactly your data is sent to and where it's processed. The product has many features. I think many are similar to other form solutions. Most of the features are the basic features that you'd expect from a forms and workflow solution. But as I mentioned before, KWIZ Forms is a non-technical tool, and I think this is the main strength, enabling non-technical users to quickly create dynamic forms. So what I'm going to do is show you how we can create dynamic forms from scratch. I didn't prepare any fancy pre-designed forms because I want you to see the main strength of the product, which is the ability for non-technical users to create dynamic forms in a very fast and easy way. Okay, so I'm going to start with a regular list. It is a sales leads list. And I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to add more and more features. And the first thing I'm going to do is make this list form dynamic. Dynamic means the ability to hide, show, or disable fields according to who you are and according to your actions in the form, values that you select in some fields, and so on. So I'm going to do two things. I have a field, you'll see it in a minute, called lead source. It's a drop down, it's a choice field. And I have another field which is called published on site. And I want the published on site field to be visible only if the user selects a lead source, which is add/banner, because only when he selects this value, published on site becomes relevant. A similar thing I'm going to do with products and quantity fields. These fields should be visible only if the selected lead type is product license. For any other lead type, these two fields should be hidden. Okay, so let's get started. Here I have my sales lead list. Before I start adding features to it, I just want to show you that it's the out-of-the-box modern list. So if I click new, I get the new SharePoint modern form. And you see this form is a bit long. It has all these fields. Now, first thing I need to do once I install KWIZ Forms is go to the KWIZ Forms settings page. And KWIZ Forms works both in classic mode and in modern mode. To support customers who prefer staying in classic mode, classic mode has some advantages over the modern list. One of the major advantages in classic is that it supports customization. Uh, Microsoft removed the support for the JS Link API, so Microsoft Modern Forms are not customizable. So you can choose in which mode you want to work. I'm clicking the Try Modern Forms. And let's go back to see the KWIZ Modern Forms before we did any customizations to it. So clicking the new item form now. Yeah, this opens the KWIZ Modern Form. It looks quite the same. You might notice some changes, but now let's make this form dynamic. So I'll click cancel, and let's go to KWIZ Form settings page. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to hide some fields depending on some conditions. So I'm going to the column permission settings page. This is where you configure rules to dynamically show, hide, or disable fields. So going back to what I wanted to do, the first field I want to configure is the published on-site field. And I want to create a new rule that will be applied to the new item form, edit item form, and view item form. I can also apply it to list views. So we can hide columns in list view. I'll get to it. And I want to hide this field. And now it's the nice part, the condition. And I want to hide this field if lead source is not equal to add/banner. And I'm clicking apply to add the rule. And I want to add two more rules for the products and quantity field. So I'm going to add the rule for products. Again, I want to apply it to all list forms. And I want to hide this field if lead type is not equal to product license. And I'm going to do exactly the same with the quantity field, which is also relevant only if the lead type is product license. That's it. So once you add a rule, you see all the rules for this list under the All Rules section. And it's written in plain English, such as this one: hide published on site in these forms when lead source is not equal to add/banner. That's it. Let's see the result. So I'm opening the list in a new tab. And let's open the new item form. So here is the lead source field. Let's make it bigger. Okay, here is the lead source field. If I select the value of add/banner, now I see the published on site field below it. But for any other value, the published on site becomes invisible. Same thing happens with lead type. If I select product license, then I see the products and quantity fields. But for any other value, The product and quantity field are invisible. So this is how easy it is to dynamically show, hide, or disable fields according to rules that you set up, rules that are based not only on columns. I could also add additional conditions. For example, I can add a condition with an or operator that says and current user is in or not in some group. So you can create quite complex conditions to hide, show, or disable fields. As I mentioned before, we can also hide or show fields in list views. One special list view is the quick edit view, which is an editable view used for bulk editing, right? So let's do something. Let's take the price field. And this time I'm choosing only list views, and I want to disable this field in list views. Now, in regular list views, of course, all fields are disabled. You cannot edit anything in regular list views. But let's look at the quick edit view now. So all the fields here are editable. Let's find the price field. Okay, this is the price field. It's great. Okay, so using KWIZ Forms, you can also disable fields in the quick edit view. Next thing I want to do is improve my forms layout. Currently I have one long form with many fields, and I like to have a multi-tab form with multi-column layout. And later on I would like also to change the colors, the backgrounds maybe. So let's go back to KWIZ Forms settings page. Okay, so here in the KWIZ Forms settings page, I'm selecting the form layout option. This is where I can arrange my field into tabs or accordion sections and so on. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new group. Each group groups fields, and then I can decide if I want to render this as tabs or as accordion section. So let's call the first group account details. And I would like this tab to have 2 columns per row. So I'm changing it. And as I change it, you see that below I have kind of a grid where in each cell I can choose which column I want to display in the cell. Not just columns, by the way. I can also display rich text or system fields and so on. And if I want to add additional rows in this grid, so it's like a Word document table. When you hover over it, you see the plus icon. So let's just add 2 fields. I'm going to add the account column and the account contacts. And let's click apply. I'm opening the new item form. And here I have the 2 fields side by side. You might notice that these are not really the regular lookup fields. They have some additional features that I will describe a bit later. Let's create one more tab. Okay, I created another group, and now let's add a few fields. You might have noticed that below every tab we have the conditions part. This enables us to conditionally display a tab depending on values of columns or who is the current user. Same as we did with the column permission where we show and hide specific fields. Let's create a third tab. This one should be displayed dynamically. And I wanted to have two columns as well. And now I'll create a condition. And the condition says that this tab should be displayed only if status equals quote sent to customer. And I'm clicking apply to save it. Now let's see the results. I'm switching back to my list and let's refresh this new item form. Okay, so now we have two tabs, the account details and the lead details. And let's change the status to customer, quote sent to customer. And you'll see that now we have a third tab. So this is the way to dynamically show or hide not just fields, but also tabs according to conditions. Next thing I'd like to show you quickly is the cascaded fields. We have the account and the account contacts. Both are regular lookup fields. Let's have a look. So currently account is a regular lookup field. It has many values. And the account contacts is also a lookup field. There's no connection between them. So it doesn't matter what I select in the account, it won't filter the account contacts. These are regular fields. And now I'll show you how to switch to cascaded fields. And not just cascaded, but you'll see some additional features. So I'm going back to KWIZ Forms settings page. And let's select the option called Cascading Lookup. Now this settings page shows you all the existing lookup fields that you have in your list. Currently we will deal with account and account contacts. Let's select the account field. So first you see to which list it's connected. You can see that unlike the regular out-of-the-box lookup field, here you can connect to lists which are not in the same site, to remote lists. So this is one advantage. And also you can filter by various options. First you can filter by view. This is also not available with the regular lookup. So let's filter the accounts lookup field by a view called active accounts. Next thing you can filter by is by additional columns in the lookup list. So let's select account manager column, which exists in the customers list. This is the account list. And let's click apply. Going back to my sales leads list, I'm refreshing the form. Okay, so now you see that I have much less options because the lookup list is filtered by a view. But in addition, I can filter this lookup by other column, which is called account manager. So if I select Robin, for example, I will see only the accounts that Robin is managing. Let's go back to the KWIZ Cascading Lookup settings page and let's configure the account contacts list. Now I want the account contacts list to be filtered by the selected account. This is the cascading behavior. So in this case, I'll configure this property which says filter by another column in this list, and I want to filter by the accounts list. And this is done by comparing the account, the selected account, to a lookup field which is called customer, which exists in the customers list, in the accounts list. And let's click apply. Let's refresh the new item form again. And Now you can see that the account contacts list is empty. Only if I select an account, I will see that account's contacts. Last thing that I'd like to show you, you can also enable adding an item in the remote list. What do I mean? Let's go back to the account lookup list and let's add a value here called add account. Refreshing again. You can see now that below the accounts lookup field, I have an add account link, which enables me to add a missing account. Now, if I don't have this link, I would have to leave this form, go to the accounts list and add this account. This enables me to add an account to the customers list directly from here. So this is also a nice improvement. By the way, while we look at this form, wanted to show you something else. What happens if I want to change the layout of the form, the background colors or the width of the fields? So by default, we inherit the styles from the current theme. So we recommend not to change it because it looks best when your forms look like the rest of your portal, right? But if you do want to make some changes, clicking this arrow on the right corner, you have the styles menu, and this opens the CSS editor. And you see that by default I have a limit for the field width. I can make them wider, or here you can see, for example, a limit on the max width only of daytime type of field. And we have all these snippets. So let's add a snippet to change the tab's background color. So as you can see, I added these two styles. Let's save this. So I selected tab looks green and an unselected tab looks with a blue background. Okay, so it's that easy to change colors, width of controls, background colors, and so on. You have complete control over your form. Although, as I said before, we do recommend on simply inheriting the SharePoint theme, and if you want to change it, go to SharePoint and change your theme. In the remaining 5 minutes, I'd like to show you two more features. First one is the repeating rows column, which enables us to create multi-row forms, such as the expense report that you can see now. So in this expense report, I have a single tab currently. And for the expense details, I have 3 rows because I configured the repeating rows column to show 3 rows by default. I have a total column because I can configure summaries. I can add additional expenses. And let's add an expense just for example to see the user experience. So let's go to expense 1 and let's pick a date. And let's select expense type, let's say food. And let's say I had a very nice lunch. And click apply. So you see that I already configured this repeating rows column not to allow a food expense which is higher than $40. Let's try something else. Let's try to report an expense in the future. So let's say I had an expense, but it will be an expense only at the end of May. Look what happened to the amount field in this row. It's gone. Again, it's because I configured using KWIZ Forms a rule that says the amount field should be displayed only if the reported expense date is less than today. One more thing that you can see here, user can attach documents or any other files to every expense line. So this means, for example, in this case where I have expense report, I can require a user that reports expenses to attach scanned invoices, for example. Clicking the attachment icon, you can upload files, but you can also attach from other sources such as OneDrive or other sites. So this is also nice, having the ability to connect multiple files or documents to a record, in this case, expense report. Okay, I'd like to use the last few minutes to talk about process automation. KWIZ Forms supports process automation through activities and custom actions. Activities are reusable, simple tasks. Such an activity can be add item, delete item, send an email, call a web service, and many others. An activity has no context. It just does one thing and that's it. A custom action is a workflow. It can be triggered either manually by a user clicking a custom ribbon button or automatically by an event such as item updated, item added, or item deleted. Once the custom action is triggered, it may display an initiation form for the end user to provide input for the custom action, and then call the included activities one by one, passing them their required parameters. At the end, it may redirect the user to a configured form or a page. Okay, so unfortunately I wasn't able to show you each and every feature of KWIZ Forms during this short session, but I think you got the idea and you saw how easy it is for non-technical users to create dynamic forms using KWIZ Forms settings pages. The non-technical user experience and the ability to keep your SharePoint extensibility features while ensuring that your data will never leave your tenant. All of these provide the most secured, simple to deploy, and cost-effective form solution for SharePoint. In case you'd like to evaluate the product, simply go to the QuizCon website. Under 365 apps, go to QuizCon Form app, and there you'll find all the information about the product as well as training videos and a complete installation guide.